What if there was an army that never seemed to lose a man? What if every time you struck one down, another appeared instantly in his place, making the unit look eternal, unstoppable, untouchable? What if you faced not just soldiers, but the illusion of immortality itself? This wasn't a myth. It wasn't sorcery. It was a strategy. And in the heart of the Persian Empire, that strategy gave birth to one of the most feared and respected forces the ancient world had ever seen, the Immortals. For over 2 centuries, they weren't just soldiers. They were living symbols of power, guardians of the throne, and a professional fighting machine unlike anything that had come before them. But what truly made them elite? How did 10,000 men become the backbone of the largest empire of the ancient world? And why does their legacy still echo in military traditions today? This is the real story of the Persian Immortals, how they were built, how they fought, and why their name still commands respect. The birth of an empire, the birth of a guard. To understand the Immortals, you have to start with the empire that created them. In the mid-6th century BCE, the ancient world was a chaotic chessboard of rival kingdoms. The old powers, Babylon, Egypt, and Lydia, were fading, leaving space for new contenders. And into this vacuum stepped a man whose ambition would redraw the map, Cyrus the Great. Cyrus began as a ruler of a small kingdom in what is now southwestern Iran, but his conquests were astonishingly swift. He toppled the Medes, subdued the wealthy kingdom of Lydia, and in 539 BCE marched into Babylon, the crown jewel of Mesopotamia. By the time he was done, his new Achaemenid Empire stretched from the Indus Valley to the Aegean Sea. But building an empire was one thing, controlling it was another. Cyrus understood that ruling over such vast and diverse lands required more than raw numbers. He needed loyalty. He needed professionalism. He needed an army that wasn't just powerful, but also a symbol, a unit that projected the unshakable strength of the Persian throne. So he created the Immortals, 10,000 men who would become the permanent royal guard, the professional corps of his army, and the most feared warriors of their age. The illusion of immortality. The name Immortals didn't come from myth or religion. It came from a terrifyingly effective system. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, the Immortals were always kept at exactly 10,000 men. If one was killed, fell ill, or retired, a replacement was drawn immediately from reserves. To enemies, this looked like sorcery. They could kill dozens one day, but the next morning, the Persian ranks were full again. Imagine being a soldier facing them. You've fought hard, seen them fall, only to wake up to find their numbers untouched. It was demoralizing. It crushed morale before a single arrow was fired. This wasn't magic. It was psychology. It made the Immortals look eternal. And when combined with their dazzling uniforms, golden ornaments, and perfectly drilled formations, they didn't just fight battles. They won them before they started. Becoming an Immortal. But who were these men? How did someone become part of this legendary force? The Immortals were not drawn from peasants or conscripts. They came from Persian, Median, and Elamite nobility, the families with the most to lose and the most to gain by protecting the throne. Boys were trained from a young age to ride, shoot the bow, endure hardship, and above all, live by honor. Their faith, Zoroastrianism, emphasized truth. Lying was seen as one of the greatest sins. So the Immortals were raised not just as warriors, but as men bound by loyalty and moral discipline. Only the most skilled, the most loyal, the most disciplined made it into the ranks. And once inside, life was different. Unlike ordinary soldiers, who often fought seasonally or for pay, the Immortals were permanent professionals. They were richly rewarded. They marched with gold jewelry, gem-studded robes, and their own supply trains carrying luxury goods, servants, and even concubines. To outsiders, this looked decadent, but to insiders, it was a strategy. It reminded the Immortals daily that they were not ordinary men. They were the king's chosen. Within the 10,000, there was an even smaller circle, the king's personal guard of 1,000, identified by the golden apples or pomegranates on their spear shafts. The rest carried silver. To be among the apple bearers was the highest honor, a visible sign that you were closer to the great king than anyone else. The face of fear. What did the Immortals look like on the battlefield? Forget the monstrous images from Hollywood. The real Immortals were far more impressive. They wore bright, ornate tunics and trousers, covered by iron scale armor that shimmered like fish scales in the sun. Their headgear, soft felt caps called tiaras, could be pulled over their faces against dust and heat, giving them a strange, faceless appearance that only added to their aura. But it was their weapons that made them so versatile. Each Immortal carried a bow, a short spear, and a short sword called the Achaemenid. They could fight at range, in the shield wall, or in brutal close quarters. This made them one of the most flexible forces of their age, something the heavily specialized Greek hoplites struggled to counter. Their shields were large, rectangular wicker frames covered in leather. Not as strong as bronze, but light and perfect for mobility. When planted in the ground, they created the sparabara, a portable wall behind which archers could unleash volleys of arrows. The combination was deadly. Rain down arrows, advance under cover, crash into the enemy line with spears, and finish with swords. It was a symphony of destruction, and when combined with Persian cavalry sweeping the flanks, the effect was overwhelming. The art of psychological warfare. But the Immortals' greatest weapon wasn't steel, it was psychology. Their appearance, shimmering armor, endless arrows, and gold ornaments was designed to awe and terrify. Their strict numbers made them seem immortal. Their disciplined formations made them look unbreakable. They didn't just fight battles, they engineered fear. Imagine standing across from 10,000 men who looked like they had stepped out of myth, advancing in perfect silence, shields interlocking, arrows blackening the sky. Even before the clash, your mind was already half defeated. This use of image, discipline, and illusion was one of Persia's greatest innovations. It wasn't just about winning with weapons, it was about conquering the mind. The battles that defined them. The Immortals proved themselves on some of the greatest battlefields of the ancient world. Opus 539 BCE. When Cyrus marched on Babylon, his Immortals likely spearheaded the fight at Opus. Though details are scarce, records describe a crushing Persian victory. The Immortals broke through Babylonian lines, clearing the path to one of the richest cities on Earth. Their reputation was sealed. Pelusium 525 BCE. Under Cambyses II, they faced Egypt. Later writers tell of Persians using cats, sacred animals to the Egyptians, as psychological weapons. Whether myth or not, it captures the Immortals' reputation. Brute force blended with cunning strategy. Thermopylae, 480 BCE. Their most famous test came against the Greeks. At the narrow pass, Xerxes unleashed the Immortals against Leonidas and his Spartans. But here, their numbers meant nothing. Their shorter spears and lighter armor faltered against the long spears and heavy bronze of the hoplites. Herodotus wrote that they fought bravely, but were repelled, suffering heavy losses. Thermopylae proved they weren't truly invincible, but even in defeat, their legend grew. Gaugamela, 331 BCE. Their last stand came against Alexander the Great. At Gaugamela, they formed the royal guard around King Darius III. They fought with courage, but Alexander's cavalry smashed through the Persian lines. Darius fled, and the Achaemenid Empire fell. The Immortals, the eternal guardians, disappeared with it. Legacy beyond defeat. The Immortals may have fallen, but their influence endured. Alexander himself admired them so much that he kept Persian guards at his court. Later empires, from Rome's Praetorian Guard to the Byzantine Varangian Guard, borrowed the model of an elite permanent royal corps. Even today, the principles they pioneered, discipline, psychological warfare, and combined arms tactics, remain central to military doctrine. Modern special forces echo their philosophy: versatile, professional, and terrifyingly effective. Myth, memory, and reality. Pop culture often distorts them. Movies paint them as monstrous, faceless demons. But the truth is richer. They weren't monsters. They were professionals, well-trained, well-equipped, loyal to their king and their empire. Even their name may be a misunderstanding. Some scholars believe Herodotus confused the old Persian word anushia, or companions, with anausa, or immortals. Whether mistake or not, the effect was the same. Their enemies believed them to be eternal. And in a way, they were. Their legend survived their empire. What made them elite? So what truly made the Immortals ancient Persia's most elite unit? It wasn't just their numbers or their weapons. It was a combination of discipline. They trained constantly, unlike seasonal levies. Psychology. Their system of replacements created the illusion of immortality. Versatility. Archers, spearmen, swordsmen. They could adapt to any fight. Status. Drawn from nobility, richly rewarded, they had every reason to be loyal. Symbolism. They weren't just soldiers. They were walking embodiments of the Persian throne. That mix of practicality and spectacle, steel and illusion, made them unforgettable. The final word. For over 2 centuries, the Immortals were the shield and spear of the King of Kings. They conquered Babylon, marched through Egypt, clashed with Spartans, and stood against Alexander. They were feared not just for how they fought, but for what they represented: power without end. Their true immortality was never in their bodies, but in their impact. They shaped how empires thought about elite forces. They showed that the greatest weapon on the battlefield isn't just steel, it's discipline, unity, and the ability to make your enemy believe they cannot win. The Immortals may have fallen on the fields of Gaugamela, but their story never died. Their legacy still whispers in the very idea of the elite soldier, and that is what truly made them immortal. If you've enjoyed uncovering the secrets of the Immortals and how they shaped the ancient world, don't let the story stop here. History is full of hidden forces, untold strategies, and forgotten warriors who changed the course of civilizations. If you want more journeys into the past, more legends pulled into the light, and more deep dives into the truths behind the myths, make sure to come back for the next story. Because history isn't just about what happened. It's about understanding why it still matters today. Stay blessed and stay curious.